So 2 months from today, we'll be voting for President of the United States. In my lifetime, this is the most important election. More important than the Vietnam years, more important than after 9/11. This is the most important because the United States of America, as we have known it in our lifetime, is under duress. That means that if the Democratic Party wins the presidency and both houses of Congress, many of our rights will vanish like that. Capitalism will turn into a European socialist system where the taxes are crazy. Corporations will flee the United States because of the tax rise on them. They'll go overseas, as they were under the Obama administration. Now, there is an excellent article, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today for those of you who want stats and facts about how the economy operated under Barack Obama as opposed to the unfettered capitalism we've had under President Trump. I am a capitalist, all right? I do not believe in socialism. I do not believe in big government telling me how to live and taking my private property. You must understand that elements of the Democratic Party, including the highest elements, Nancy Pelosi, Charles Schumer, the senator from New York, are fine with seizing the private property of affluent Americans. And that will happen if the Democrats get control of the country. What will also happen is that your right to defend yourself will dramatically be reduced. Your right as a religious person, a person of conscience, will be thrown right out the window. You'll have no rights. So they will take your tax money, they being the Democratic Party, and they will use it for whatever they want. If that means abortion up to the last 15 minutes before birth, that's what they'll do. If that means forcing you to attend to a ceremony that violates your religious beliefs, they will do that. And you will have no rights whatsoever. This will happen. In addition, the policies that will be put into law by the Democratic Party will favor a certain group based on skin color, ethnicity, historical injustice. There's not going to be equal justice for all. It isn't happening now. We reported yesterday in Contra Costa County, that's Oakland, the DA there is not prosecuting looters if the DA thinks that they're poor. They are justified in breaking into your store, taking your merchandise because they're poor. She's not going to stop them. That means that the rule of law, which is tenuous anyway, collapses. So I could give you 1,000 more examples. I gave you at the beginning of this week what our belief system is. You can access that on BillO'Reilly.com. But if the Democrats win, life as we know it in America changes for the worse, in my opinion. Now, I'm not exaggerating. I can back up everything I say with facts. And here is the biggest fact, that Joe Biden, he's not a raving socialist. He's not Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. He's not. But he is not in charge. He is not calling the shots. All right, now there's been a lot of discussion about who is. I can tell you David Axelrod, who is working for CNN now, but was a top Obama advisor, has a lot to say. President Obama himself has a lot to say, all behind the scenes. Joe Biden will do as he is told if he is elected president. And the best example is Kamala Harris. He didn't want her. She humiliated him. She called him a racist in the debates. Everybody saw it. Biden didn't want her, but he was forced to take her because he foolishly said, I have to have a woman of color on the second. He should not have said that. I don't mind him choosing a woman of color, by the way, okay? But he shouldn't have said that and pigeonholed himself in. But he was told, take Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris does him no good. California is going to vote for Biden no matter what, all right? And she is the most liberal senator in that chamber. It's documented. She votes more left than Sanders or Warren or anybody else. So don't tell me that Joe Biden's a moderate. I mean, the dishonest New York Times, when Senator Harris was chosen, put on, oh, she's a centrist. That's just a lie. All right? But the media lies all day, every day. You can't believe anything they say, which is why you're watching me right now. I mean, our operation on BillO'Reilly.com and on cable and on radio is growing. I've never seen anything grow like this. And we're hard to find sometimes. And BillO'Reilly.com, people have to pay a little money. Not a lot, but a little. But we are prospering because we will tell you the truth. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not asking for you to agree with me, but we're going to present our case, back it up by facts, and then you can decide. At least you'll get an honest play. You will not watching the other TV newscasts and reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, and on and on. You will not get an honest play, period. Biden knows that's a huge advantage for him. He knows he can say and do anything, and he's not going to be chastised for it. So at this point, 2 months before the vote, we have Biden versus Trump, but we really don't. That's not what the election is all about, Biden or Trump. Stripped away, Biden or Trump, they don't mean very much. And I'm saying this with all due respect. I'm not attacking them. But what you're really voting for in November is whether you respect traditional America or whether you want a radical left government to take over. That's what you're voting for. Because Donald Trump will keep things pretty much the way they are. He'll settle some scores if he's reelected, and I hope he does, quite frankly. If Biden's elected, Biden will be in there. He'll be waving to you, smiling with the capped teeth like this. But he's going to sign anything that the Senate and House send him. You want to confiscate private property by a wealth cast? Joe's going to sign it. Okay? You want to ban guns? Joe will sign it. And then they'll let the Supreme Court sort it out. So that's why this is the most important election in my lifetime. Because the country's on the line. It's not about men, two men. All right? It's not about that. The country is on the line. And I hope you understand it, and I hope you will discuss this with your friends and family. So you're not voting for a man here. You're voting for a philosophy. Traditional America versus radical left America. There's no moderation in the Democratic Party, none. They're lemmings. Pelosi threatens the people in the Congress. If you don't go our way, we won't give you any money. And Schumer whips them up in the Senate. You better vote our way or you'll be a pariah. There's no dissent. It's not like the Republican Party, which is, not the greatest party in the world, but at least there's open debate in there. Not in the Democratic Party. They're a monolith, and the far left is directing it. Now, the debate moderators were announced today. The first one, September 29th, Chris Wallace will moderate Case Western University in Cleveland. Wallace, okay. All right, he's not going to follow up with much, but he'll try to be fair, I think. He doesn't like Trump, but I don't think he's a big fan of Biden's either. All right, the second debate, October 15th in Miami. Steve Scully, executive producer for C-SPAN. I don't know him, so I can't comment. Third debate, October 22nd, 1 week after the second debate, Belmont University, Nashville, Tennessee, Kristen Welker, NBC News. Surprised by that. Surprised that Trump campaign okayed that because NBC News, Comcast, been tremendously anti-Trump. All right, they have a whole network devoted to tearing him apart. I don't know Ms. Welker. I don't know her. I know I've seen her once in a while. I don't have a real opinion formed. I will start to get that before it comes up. The VP debate, which is on October 7th, will be Susan Page, USA Today. She's all right, been around forever, but the VP debate really doesn't matter. Unless Pence takes Senator Harris to the woodshed, which is not Pence's style. I would if I were Pence, but got plenty there. Okay, so the polls, as we discussed yesterday with Scott Rasmussen, I hope you saw that interview, don't matter now. Next week, they'll start to matter a little, but it's all about the debate. It's all about debate. So USA Today comes out with a poll today, 1,000 registered voters, Republican 32, Democrat 35. It says that Joe Biden's ahead of Trump by 7 points, 50-43. But if you look back in June, the spread on USA Today poll was 12, so it shrunk 5 points. I say it's even. And that's based upon state polling that I'm looking at, my momentum theory. Momentum is very important. I have a theory that momentum drives victory, but the polls are 2-3 weeks behind the momentum. Because people don't react immediately to what happens. Trump helped himself in the convention. Biden helped himself too, but not as much as Trump. And the law and order issue is really what everybody's talking about. Now, Biden's 77 years old. He's going to be 78 on November 20th. Okay? He'll be the oldest president ever inaugurated. Trump's 74, just turned 74 in June. Biden himself, I don't know if he's mentally compromised. That's what the right wing says. The Republicans say. We're going to talk to Donald Trump Jr. in a few moments. He believes that. He wrote a book, and that's in the book. I don't know if that's true. Having written Killing Reagan, where Ronald Reagan, after he was shot and was killed, did have mental problems for a while, but he made a comeback. Mr. Reagan made a startling, almost miraculous comeback, as we chronicle in the book. But September 29th, we'll find out. That is the key moment in the presidential race. So even if it's not like Reagan got waxed by Mondale, you'll remember, the first debate, and then he came back in the second debate. There's no comeback here. If the first debate, Biden does not perform well, Trump wins. Not just the debate, but the presidency, because that's going to have a huge audience on the 29th of September. Everybody's going to be locked in. They're going to be looking for signs of weakness, mental weakness, from Joe Biden. All right? So that is the key date. And polling up to that point, you know, it really doesn't matter. After the first debate, then it starts to matter. Okay. So Biden, if he wasn't being held hostage, would be a neutral president, kind of a Jimmy Carter kind of guy. I'm really interested in social justice. He's not. Biden's not interested in social justice. He'll say he is, but he isn't. Trump's not interested in it either. Neither one are. They're not interested in social justice. They're interested in politics as usual. Biden is. Trump wants his legacy to be a booming economy. So he's got, you know, a dog in the hunt, as they say. I hate to use a cliche. Biden just wants to be president. He's got no overarch. In fact, if you look at his belief system, he's contradicted every core belief he's ever had. Now, many politicians do that. Many do that. All right? I'm not singling him out, but I'm just saying, what does Joe Biden believe in? Joe Biden. On Donald Trump's side, what does Donald Trump believe in? Donald Trump. I mean, so they have that in common. But Trump wants a legacy. He wants to go down in history as this outsider who came into Washington, cleaned up the economy, made America great again by good trade deals, boosting the military. He wants that legacy on his historical sheet. So he's motivated for that. Joe Biden's not motivated for anything. He just wants to be president. And he'll do what he is told, as I mentioned. So, you know, you got two flawed candidates. And I know a lot of you watching are Trump supporters, but let's face it. Donald Trump has brought a lot of the problems that he's had in office on himself. And he didn't have to do that. But he did, because he makes it all about him. In the debates, and this is advice that I'm giving President Trump. He didn't ask me, by the way. If you don't make it about yourself, Mr. President, and you make it all about Joe Biden, you'll win the debate. But if you try to make it about you, anything can happen. Make it all about him, your opponent, and you'll win. Okay, so that's where we are 2 months before we pull the lever or we mail in. And I hope you saw our investigation yesterday on mail-in voting. I hope you saw it, because it will be a massive fraud. And I'm not going to speculate. I hope that whoever wins by a wide enough margin and we don't have to go through what we had to go through with Bush Gore. That was horrible. And finally, one final word on Kamala Harris. I don't know the woman. I've never spoken to her. I don't know her staff. I'm kind of blind on it. But I know her record. And in the beginning, she was fairly tough on crime as first the district attorney, then the attorney general of California. She wasn't a left-wing loon, but she comes out of the San Francisco cauldron. And now she knows her future is with the far left. She can't afford to be moderate or conservative on anything. Now, the Democratic Party thinks that she will be president. Whether it's in 4 years or before that, they're banking on her. All right, let's bring in our featured guest, somebody who's deeply involved with the presidential campaign. Donald Trump Jr. from the Trump Tower in New York City. He's got a brand new book, published himself, and we'll get into that. Liberal Privilege, Joe Biden and the Democrats' Defense of the Indefensible. Wow, that's kind of a interesting title, and we'll get to the book in a moment. But I gotta ask you a couple of personal questions about you and your father. You helped me out a lot in my book, The United States of Trump. And you know what I found, and I want everybody to know this, you didn't tell me anything that wasn't true. I thought you were going to give me a little propaganda here, a little spin there. You didn't. And I really, I respect that. You're a straight shooter. All right.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes I think it makes sense to be. The reality in this world, there are no real secrets, so it's usually easier just to be honest, even if that means you're being direct and people don't always love it. It's easier to tell the truth.
And that's a good philosophy. So you've seen your father now for 3.5 years in the Oval Office. How has he changed?
You know, listen, I think there's a lot of him that's the same, that fighting mentality. But, you know, I see it when he still sort of is in awe of the magnitude of the responsibility. I mean, he still sort of has a little bit of that, you know, that boy from Queens, just look at what's going on, look at what we can do for people's lives. But I think, you know, the difference in 2016 was he was promising to do things. Now he's actually done them. He's seen the results of the things that he went in there to do actually manifest themselves for the American people. All of those incredible policies that have allowed Americans to live that American dream. So I think he's really truly humbled by the whole experience, and that's why he wants to do it again. The other side, obviously, Bill, has not made it easy on him. They have not, you know, he's probably taken more incoming fire than any president in history in terms of the nonsense and the lies and the attacks on him and his family. But he sees the result, which is why he wants this 4 more years so badly.
Okay. But he has put on a lot of weight. He's hunched over sometimes. A report which we knocked out in this broadcast that he had a mini stroke in November of 19. All of that nonsense. But I've seen physically him change a little bit. And I think it's because of the incredible pressure and strain every president is under, and we've all seen them change. I think he's experiencing that as well. Am I wrong?
Well, you know, I haven't noticed. I'm with him a lot. You know, when I get a call from him, it's usually past midnight, and he's still in the Oval Office working and getting it done. So, you know, he's always been a high-energy guy. You compare and contrast that with Joe Biden, who, you know, if he answers a couple teleprompted questions, barely gets through it, then he has to go back down into the basement and hide for a few days. And so that report, that nonsense, it's been debunked now. But the report that the media tried to run with, that Donald Trump had these mini strokes, they literally neglect to talk about the fact that Joe Biden has literally had 2 brain surgeries to deal with 2 separate brain aneurysms, explosions in his brain, Bill. And yet when the guy can't remember where he is, what, 50% of the time? He forgets his wife from his sister. He forgets the office he's running for. You've seen the teleprompter when he just forgets where he is and he starts rambling like a crazy person. You know, a guy that's had two brain surgeries, the media won't even talk about it as though it's a problem. I mean, he's the epitome of health, but he's had operations on his brain. He has these issues that manifest themselves, and there's nothing to see here, folks. Give me a break.
All right. Well, you write about that in your new book, and you document that all the deficits you believe he has. One deficit that your father has was on display today. He tweeted out that Joe Lockhart should be fired from CNN, Fredo, Chris Cuomo should be fired from CNN, and who was he? Oh, Joy Reid should be fired from MSNBC. Now, I know he's just giving them jazz. He's just giving it back. I know what he's doing. All right. Yeah. But should a president of the United States in the middle of a pandemic and a tough economy and, civil unrest, should he be really tweeting about people who don't matter at all?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I see both sides of it. The reality is Donald Trump's a fighter. The reason he's able to get things done is because he puts his shoulder down, as Herschel Walker said last week in the RNC, and runs through people. When people like that who have become the propaganda arm of the Democrat Party under the guise of being journalists do nothing but smear him, attack him all day long, all of a sudden when their flaws are manifest, when their lies get made known, when their, crazy stuff, whatever I saw last night on Tucker with Cuomo and all these things, when they happen, we're supposed to ignore it. We're supposed to pretend that these people are just totally objective journalists, Bill. These people have no agenda whatsoever. They just want to get the truth out there. So I think he has to highlight that, just like I had to write the book, because no one in the media will talk about Joe Biden's very real flaws. They won't talk about the very real flaws of the Democrat Party. They won't talk about the looting and the rioting. The Democrats had 1 week in that I Hate America Zoom call of the DNC, and not one person brought it up.
See, I would let you do it, or I would let one of our other, maybe McInerney, the press secretary.
Yeah.
If I were president, I wouldn't lower myself to these people.
Well, Bill, if it's any consolation, he still calls me and tells me I have to go easy on social media at times. So even I'm on the receiving end of that one at times.
Let's get on to your book. You've self-published the book. It's a big hit. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The book's title is Liberal Privilege. All right. And I understand that the left dominates the media better than anyone, and by that they have privilege. But don't you, Donald Trump Jr., have white privilege? Don't you? I mean, born into this unbelievably wealthy family and having every opportunity in the world, don't you have white privilege?
100%. I think I'm very privileged. I don't disassociate with that. I recognize it. The difference is, liberal privilege is the only one that no one actually talks about. Anyone else who has some sort of privilege, they jam it down your throat. But liberal privilege is the ability to do whatever you want, to be Joe Biden, to flip-flop on it, to have those health issues. Joe Biden's son taking $1.5 billion from the Chinese government, $30 million a year in fees, Joe, in a typical fund structure at 2%. And no one talks about that. If I did that, I'd be in jail.
No, they talk about it.
The mainstream media won't. You, myself, Sean Hannity will, but no one else talks about it. So the purpose of this book was to highlight to, honestly, more so the independent voter than anything, the very real flaws with Joe Biden and his 50-year, a half-a-century swamp career. We're to believe, according to the media, that Joe Biden's going to make it all get better. He's had a half a century. I mean, I've heard of guys that take a little while to warm up to the role, but a half a century seems too long. When Joe Biden got his first elected office, when he could have started making actual changes, I was -8. I was -8, Bill, but we're to believe that he's going to do it now. Why wait a half a century to get going? Is anyone that stupid anymore?
Don, you know and I know, and anybody who reads your book knows, that if he's elected president, Joe Biden's not going to do anything.
Right.
Other than
Joe
what
Biden
he's told to do. I mean, that's
correct.
That's what's going to happen.
He's the camouflage, though. He's being used as the camouflage to get the radical left agenda of his vice president, of Bernie Sanders in the Joint Unity platform that's on his website. I'm not making this up as a conservative saying that this is what he's going to do. It's on his website. When they say what they are, believe them. This is a radical leftist, socialist, Marxist agenda, and it's being sold to the American people under the guise that, Joe Biden is moderate Joe from Scranton. Well, he's not. You're not a moderate with Kamala as your VP. You're not a
And
moderate
we
with
went over
Beto as
that,
your guns are.
and I think most people know. All right, I think you're going to run for office. I don't think you can run in New York. You have to move out of the state like Hillary did. But I think you're going to run for office. I mean, you're the only guy who can out-talk me. I mean, that's a compliment. You make me look like a mute. But you're going to run for office. So tell me what state you're going to run in and what you're going to do.
I don't know about that. My only focus is 2020. I see the results of this administration. I see the results of the agenda. And because, honestly, I get it. I'm the son of a billionaire from New York. But as you know, my hobbies, my passions, my free time is spent in middle America with real people, blue-collar people. Like, that's what I actually choose to spend my time. And so, I don't know. My only focus is that I definitely probably couldn't do it in New York if I ever did it. I know after my speech, they said it's me versus, I guess it was me versus Nikki Haley was what the press was saying. I have no intention right now. I'm going to stay involved because I have a fighter.
Do the stair step. Go down to Florida or, North Carolina, establish residency, run for Senate, and do it that way. That's just my advice from an old guy.
My eyes on the temporary prize. My eyes on the next 4 years. It's for November. After that, we'll worry about it. Either way, I will stay involved. I will be a very loud and aggressive and quick-talking voice for conservatives because I think we need more actual fighters on our side of the table, and we don't have enough of them.
All right. The book is Liberal Privilege, Donald Trump Jr. Thanks for taking the time, Don. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. Good to be with you.
So the press made something of this consult poll that came out today. Almost 13,000 likely voters. So we called them and we said, what was your methodology there? And they wouldn't give it up. So this is a fake poll. So if you call a pollster and you ask for the methodology, that means Republicans, Democrats, Independents. How does it break down? Who did you ask? You got 13,000 people on your sheet. It's a lot of people. How'd you break it down? And they say, we're not going to give it to you. It's fake. All right, period. So their poll, I'll give you the results, but again, this is totally bogus. Who'd you like to see for president? Biden 51, Trump 43. Pretty big gap, 8%. Another poll comes out, Emerson College in Boston, 1,567 likely voters. They did give their methodology. Democrat 37, Republican 33, 4% spread. And got Biden 49, Trump 47. That's a tie with a 4-point spread on political party. That means Trump's ahead. So that's Emerson, and that's Morning Consult. And now we bring in a guy who I've known for decades, Scott Rasmussen. He sold the Rasmussen poll outfit. He doesn't run it anymore. But while he was running it, Scott was one of the most accurate pollsters that I've seen. We used him all the time on The Factor. Now, he does daily tracking. Scott is the editor-at-large at Ballotpedia. That is an organization that tracks political races all over the country, not just presidential. He also has a podcast. Everybody has a podcast. Everybody in the world now has a podcast. Scott Rasmussen's Number of the Day podcast. But Scott's is worth watching. Anyway, Scott has a weekly tracking poll. He's got Trump 44%, Biden 48%. He joins us now from Clearwater, Florida. Okay, so am I too hard on Morning Consult?
Well, I don't know that I would call it a fake poll, but if a pollster is not going to tell you the methodology, how they reached people, what the sample looks like, you want to be very skeptical about it. And I wouldn't say you just go from one poll like Morning Consult to Emerson and say, this is it. You take a look at a range of polls. And the reality is right now, if you look at the average of all the polls, President Trump is trailing Joe Biden by a few points. In my own sampling, what we find is if there's a bigger turnout, then Joe Biden's lead grows a little bit. The more people who are irregular voters who show up and vote, the better it is for Biden. The more people who will mail in their ballots, the better it is for Biden.
There's no doubt about that. We're going to report on that after you come up. Yeah. Let me just ask you a few specific questions, though.
Sure.
So right now, my theory is polling doesn't matter. After Labor Day, it'll start to matter a little bit more. But I'm saying that the debates, particularly the first one on September 29th, really going to tell the tale. So right now you got ebb and flow, a news cycle, whatever the crazy thing Donald Trump says on any given day. And I use the word crazy not in a literal sense, but sometimes it is a little crazy. All right. It goes up and it goes down, it goes in and it goes out. But I said that I believe the race is even now. It's even. And anything could happen. Would I be wrong on that assessment?
I don't think you're too far off from where I am. I would say that Biden is ahead just a little bit, but certainly anything can happen. First debate is huge because we just haven't seen much of Joe Biden, and he hasn't been challenged very much. And so that could be a very revealing thing. My theory is that there's two big things that are coming into play beyond the candidates. First, everything revolving around pandemic, lockdowns, economy. If people are feeling a little better about the pandemic and a little better about the economy come November, that's really good news for Donald Trump. If there's a second wave and the economy tanks again, well, that could be Donald Trump looking like Herbert Hoover. The other issue is what you talked about up front. When the issue was civil rights after George Floyd was killed, that was a huge bump for Joe Biden because Donald Trump never looks good talking about civil rights issues. But as the issue morphs into law and order, that becomes problematic for Joe Biden. And the more we hear about Kenosha, the more we hear about violence and the Democratic response, the better that is. So you tell me how the issues play out on law and order versus civil rights and pandemic versus economy. That's probably going to pick our winner for the next presidency.
Yeah, and that's why I say that it's not right now. The polling really doesn't matter. But the sentiment in the country, and I think I'm pretty good at this. I predicted Trump would win 5 days before the vote in 2016. And I knew that from internal polling and from other journalistic information that I got, because I actually do some reporting, Scott, which sets me apart from 90% of the other people on television. But here, there is a basic struggle, an ideological struggle, because no matter what Biden does, he's tied to the far left. No matter what he does or says, it doesn't matter what he does or says from now until Election Day. Many Americans believe he is a hostage of the far left. Trump, while they may not like him or his style, certainly isn't that. So that we have more of an ideological election than at any other time since McGovern-Nixon, in my opinion. That makes sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And what's really interesting about this issue right now, the things that are happening to Joe Biden, 48% of voters, and by the way, your comment about polls not meaning a lot till after Labor Day is true in terms of the horse race. We can still learn a lot from what people are thinking and talking about. 48% of voters nationwide are worried that violent protests and riots will come to their community. And this is not a case of Republicans saying, oh, we're worried, and Democrats saying, oh, come on. About half of Republicans are worried, about half of Democrats.
Right.
This is an issue that is cutting across party lines, and it is creating challenges for Joe Biden every single day this issue is in the news. He would much rather talk about the pandemic or anything other than the issues going on that the president is highlighting today.
There's no doubt about it. Last question for you. I believe that the pressure of the first debate is on Mr. Biden, because many Americans who don't pay attention, and that's a big amount of voters, they don't watch news, they don't read the newspapers, they hear stuff. But the perception is that Joe Biden is not mentally fit to run the country at his age. If he comes off not sharp on September 29th, he loses. You think that's a legitimate point?
Depending on how not sharp it is, yes. He is in a situation that's really unprecedented. We're dealing with issues that have just popped up in the last 6 months. So you can talk about track records and everything else, but nobody's dealt with these issues specifically before. He's dealing with a president who a lot of people really despise because of the way he characterizes himself. But some of them, about 3 to 5% of all voters, say We really dislike Donald Trump, but we think things would be worse if Hillary had won. So you got that dynamic. And then you've got Joe Biden, who just people don't know what he can do. And if he flubs, he's not going to have a chance. You're old enough, you and I can remember Ronald Reagan's great second debate comeback against Walter Mondale. I'm not going to make my opponent's youth and inexperience an issue in this campaign. If Joe Biden really stumbles on that first debate, he will not have a chance to make it up in the second.
All right, Scott. Oh, good analysis as always. I hope you'll come back a couple of more times before Election Day and give us your thoughts.
Look forward to it.
Really appreciate you helping us out. Thanks, Scott. All right, let's get into some mail here. Got a lot of good mail while I was on vacation. Alan on a message board, the Democrat Marxists are using any excuse to riot, burn, and loot. They've gone too far off the tracks and will pay big time in November. If it continues, I think you're right. Peter, message board. Message board is on BillO'Reilly.com. Come on in. You'll love it. Personal responsibility has consequences if you decide to ignore police and run to your car and reach for something while the police are telling you to stop, and you are a known criminal. He's referring to the Kenosha, Wisconsin case. What do you expect to happen? All true, but police are held to a higher standard now in particular. All right, police have to be very, very careful. It is not fair, but that's where we are. Francis, it's obvious that all people will never agree on policy. The difference today is that people do not talk about their differences. There's too much hate. True. The two sides, you hear all this, Joe Biden, I'm going to unity. Even Trump says, they're not going to unify. We're too far apart. I'll get into this later on this week. We're too far apart. Not going to be any unity in November, no matter what happens. Noreen, Bill, for someone on vacation, you were busy keeping us informed. I try. Came out of that ocean, got the little dopey machine. Hope you managed some meaningful downtime. Looking forward to having you back this week. Here I am. But I did. I was on it last week, and thank you for noticing, Noreen. I appreciate that. Stefan, Bill, you agreed that there does need to be police reform. Maybe so, but there also needs to be a reform in attitude of all races in the USA. There's not going to be a reform of attitude. It's not going to happen. All right, in the short term, maybe in the long term, but not in the short term. Mark Turley, Fresno, California. Are you serious when you say you're okay with Biden needing to rehearse his acceptance speech for 48 hours? Being president would demand so much more, and he already is questionable. Number one, I didn't say I'm okay with anything. I reported that's what he did. And I'm not angry that he rehearsed. I don't care. I don't care. Karen Welsh, Laguna Woods, California. Does everyone know the NYPD has endorsed Trump? The NYPD has not endorsed Trump. The police unions have endorsed Trump. There's a difference. Cops don't endorse. Unions do. Let's see what else we have here. What time we have? We've got about 5 minutes left. Peter Bursick, St. Petersburg, Florida. Why can't President Trump implement his plan concerning any additional stimulus funds? Because Congress makes budgetary decisions, not the president. Now, the president has a little wiggle room with executive orders, but he can't do a $1.5 trillion bailout. That's Congress's job. That's what they do. They have the purse strings, not the president. This is a separation of powers. Why can't I get these sheets separated here? Is it me? Probably is. Todd Pokriwa, Vera, Florida. Thank you, Bill, for talking about the truth and being objective like no one else. I have to tell you, as much as I love The Factor, your reporting on the No Spin News is head and shoulders above what you did at Fox News. Well, I appreciate that, Todd. I think we did a pretty good job there for 20 years plus. But remember, I'm running the show now here. That's the difference. Andrea Antonelli Velton, Lakeside, California. I was just talking with my husband saying Bill needs to make yard signs and hats with the saying he has on his sticker, stand up for your country. Well, here it is. Here's the yard sign. And we got great nifty hats. A picture of me wearing one on the website. Look at this. Now, I'm going to talk about this and the Black Lives Matter sign, because there are yard signs of Black Lives Matter in the final thought. But we have them if you want them. you should get them because it makes a statement, a good statement. Nicholas Carosa, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Bill, thanks for everything. I just finished mailing out my first 50 Stand Up for America stickers. Let me see those stickers. Put them on the screen, please. I am awaiting my next 50. Take care and God bless. Nick, you are a patriot. You are spreading the word, and that is what we need. Okay, here's the final thought of the day. So I'm riding around Long Island on my vacation, and I see occasionally a Black Lives Matter sign on the lawn, or a sticker, and there's nothing wrong with that. I would prefer all Black Lives Matter, so that you would bring in the people who are being gunned down in Chicago and New York City and other places, because they shouldn't be being gunned down. I would prefer that. The Black Lives Matter Global Foundation is a Marxist crew. They condone violence. They're vicious. And I don't think you want to be associated with them. I don't think any good person does. So if you have just Black Lives Matter, that might send a signal. Now, I'm not going to put a Black Lives Matter sign up on my lawn because it's not defined clearly enough. This is stand up for your country. Okay? We don't kneel. We don't kneel. We know things have to be improved. We know reforms, as I just went over, have to be made. But we also know this is the most noble nation that has ever existed. Now, you put this on your lawn or anywhere you want, and that sends a message. And it's not political. It's not political at all. It's just stand up for your country, respect for your country. We don't kneel. We have nothing to kneel about. So there it is. I hope you participate. It's a very, very worthy campaign we have. We'll see you tomorrow.